Welcome to part 2 of deploying Django to production using Heroku. In this presentation, we'll talk about setting up Git, GitHub, and Heroku. Now we'll talk about installing Git and setting it up. I use Brew to install Git for Mac OS. There are several different ways to do it. I encourage you to go up and look and see which one is best for you. But I use Brew install Git from the command line, and it's that simple. So Git will track changes to all the files and folders in the given directory, but there are some files that you'd want to ignore, that you don't want in your Git repository under version control. So you can create a .gitignore file and simply put these words in that file to ignore those particular file types. Check your current working directory with a present working directory command on Mac OS or Linux, or a cd command on Windows before you initialize the repository. You should be at the root of your project folder where manage.py lives. After you have successfully installed Git, the first thing you should do is initiate an empty Git repository and then set up your name and your email as follows. To commit files to your Git repo, there are two commands to issue from the command line: a git add --all, and then a git commit -m and add a comment. You'll see that files that are not committed will be in red, and files that have been committed are in green. Now you can create a repository on GitHub. So if you haven't done so already, go up to GitHub and create yourself an account. Then create a new repository. GitHub has some really wonderful training if you need that. Now, grab the URL from GitHub when you created your new repository and add the remote GitHub repo to your local repo as follows. You see the git remote add origin, and then the path is that URL that you will have on GitHub when you create your new repository. You want to put that there. I wanted to take a minute to expose you to an error message that I received when I fired off my git init command. In case you see it, you'll know how I resolved it. There may be other ways to resolve it, but I resolved it this way. So when I fired off the git init, I got an invalid active developer path, and you see the error message in blue. What I did to resolve that was to run from the command line a sudo xcode -select -- install. Once I did that, I was able to proceed. Now we'll fire off the git push command so that we can push our project files up to our new GitHub repo. Git push -u origin master. Once you do that, you should be able to log into your GitHub repository and see that the files are now there. Now that we have Git and GitHub out of the way, it's time to start to tackle Heroku. So the first thing we'll do is install the Django Heroku plugin. So we'll go to the command line and run a pip install Django -Heroku. Be sure to add Django Heroku to your requirements.txt file as well. And we've done that several times. You can wait till the end to run this, but I like to do it every step of the way to make sure that I have everything. After you've done that, to the top of your production.py, add the import statement for this application. Import Django _Heroku. And then to activate Django -Heroku, you would add to the bottom of the production.py Django _Heroku.settings, passing it the locals method. Now on this slide, all we want to do is expose you to some Heroku specific configurations. Some you've seen, some you haven't seen. And I encourage you to go up to the Heroku site for more details on this. But Heroku stores sensitive credentials in environment variables. This includes the database connection information that we've already seen before. We've already seen this before in the first training session on migrating your Django project to Heroku, database _URL. Then the Django Heroku package, which we just dealt with. And finally, it talks about the Heroku command line interface. Now, if you haven't done so already, log into the Heroku website, create your free account, and set up an application. Choose to add on Postgres by searching for it in the search bar in the add-on section. Click in to your newly created data store and take note of your URI. We're going to need that. Then we'll set up the secret key for production. From your virtual environment, you want to fire off the following: Heroku Config :set secret_key, and then pass a secret key. Then modify your production.py file as follows. You'll take that secret key that you just used in that Heroku command, and you'll pass it os.environ, and then in square brackets, in quotes, secret_key, just like you saw it in that command. Now back to the command line, issue Heroku login, and then add a Heroku Git remote repo. Now you see why we needed to use Git. Heroku actually needs this. Heroku Git :remote --a, and then add the name of your application. The name should match the name you gave it on the Heroku site. Now we'll install Gunicorn. Again, from your virtual environment in the command line, pip3 install Gunicorn. It'll do its thing, and then we'll create the proc file. And again, this file is capital P with no extension to the file. It'll be placed in the root of your project container, the outside folder where manage.py lives. And add to the proc file just this one line: web: Gunicorn, then the name of your project. Mine is myproject1 .wsg --log -file --, just like you see it there. Again, we'll mention that this file is used to explicitly declare your application's process types and entry points. It's located at the root of the repository. The proc file requires Gunicorn. And then finally, like we do after we install any package, we want to update our requirements.txt file. You might be wondering at this point, how does Heroku know which settings.py file to use? Well, here we're back at the command line within our virtual environment, and we fire off this command to point to first our project name and then the correct settings.py. And in this case, the settings.py that we are using obviously is called production.py. You note that we don't need the .py when we fire off this command. Now we're ready to push to Heroku and see our application. So from the command line again, git push Heroku master. Here I show you Heroku logs, very important in case you have any problems. You can fire off this command and see what's happened in the last few seconds of the application running and maybe why it shut down. Heroku restart does just that, restarts the Heroku server, and then Heroku open will open your application. Be sure to pass it the right URL. For me, it was myapp.heroku, whatever name I gave it when I set up my application up on Heroku, then .herokuapp.com, and then it was yogicoder/homes. That's the path for me. Yours may be different depending upon how you configured your Django application. To see your Heroku configuration, very handy is Heroku Config. And to see your Postgres database info, also very handy, Heroku pg:info. Up until this point, we may be able to see our application, but we sure can't see the data, and that's because we've done nothing with the data yet. So if you're using Postgres DB, the easiest way to export your data to get it ready to bring it up to AWS is to go into the GUI, the pgadmin 3, and to right-click on your database and select Backup. Give it any name of your choosing and save it. Now we'll visit the wonderful world of Amazon Web Services. So the first thing you'll do, if you haven't done it already, is create yourself an account on Amazon AWS. Then select All Services. Scroll down to where you see S3. Create yourself what is known as a new bucket to store your database data in. And then upload your data that you exported in the previous slide into this new bucket you created. Collect the link for your database. To do this, you will click into your database backup in the bucket. Go to Overview, go to Link, right-click Copy. Keep that link safe for the moment. We're going to use it in the very next slide. All right, we're almost done now. You want to go back to the project's command line and fire off the following command. Once you get to the first single quote, you are going to put in that link that I told you to save from the previous page. And then this last part, after the quote, comes from your Heroku Postgres add-on. You get it from clicking in your application on Heroku, then by clicking on your Heroku Postgres link under Installed Add-ons. Then at the top of that page, you will see the data store name. in a configuration that's very similar to mine. Be sure you include the quotes around the link. Okay, now here we are at my particular website up on Heroku. So you see Yogi Coder, which was the name of the app I gave it, .herokuapp.com, and then my particular path to my Django application. And let's see, do we have data? We do. So this is all being pushed from my Postgres database, and the data itself is being stored on AWS. So we have quite a few things going on here. But yes, all my data is there. So that's how we do it. It worked. Thank you very much for taking this tour with us. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me, and I promise to get back to you.